I just want to do a very quick exercise in logic using these two pots and a small lump of yellow Play-Doh. And what I want to try and do here is to think through the link between Aristotelian logic, or the logic that we propel most of our lives, particularly in relation to things like syllogisms and the derivation of true conclusions from true premises, how that logic relates to being a medium-sized object moving at middle speed, which is what we are. Okay, a little bit of background on that first. The syllogism I'm going to work with is a famous syllogism of, I don't know, Socrates is a man, all men are mortal, therefore Socrates is mortal. You've heard of that one? All men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. The two, as long as the first two premises are correct, which they are, let's say, then the final sentence is also deemed to be true. And you derive it because the coherence of the first two demand that the final one be true. And people sometimes make mistakes like that. If I can find a way to do it, I'll point out some of those mistakes. But what I want to suggest is that logic derives from the experience of being embodied, which is, you know, that we interact with objects and we interact with the environment around us and with other people all the time, and our brains have evolved within that kind of context of those interactions. And because our brains and our minds have evolved with those kind of interactions, the logic that we bring out, and which is completely intuitive to us, is similarly derived from those experiences. And in this particular case, the case of that syllogism, the case of that bit of Aristotelian logic, I'm going to suggest that it's derived from our experience of containers and objects. Not necessarily Play-Doh containers, but, you know, containment generally. Because containers have very particular properties, and there's a kind of logic to the logic of the container. I'll make a separate video about that at some point. And the logic of the container provides the template from which other kind of logics flow. And in this particular case, it's the logic of categories. When we talk about categories, as we do most of the time, where on some level our cognitive apparatus, our minds, is deploying a conceptual metaphor which is about containers. So every time we use categories, on some level we're talking about containers. And that applies to this particular piece of logic. Let me see if I can explain what I mean by that. Let's just say, right, that this container is a category, and it's a category of things that are mortal. Yeah? So everything that's mortal would go in this category here, in this container here. This container, this old Play-Doh pot, is a category of men. So I'm in there, if you're a man, you're in there, you know, every man that's ever lived is in there, every man that'll ever be born is in there. Yes, it's a category of things that we call men are in here, yes? Right. So, one of the properties of men is that they are mortal. Yeah? All men die. It's in the nature of the beast. So, all men are in the category of things that are mortal. Like that, yes? There's lots of other things in here as well. The category of birds is in here as well. The category of reptiles is in here. The category of women is in here, of course. But the category of men is in the category of things that are mortal. Now, we can also say that Socrates, who is this lump of Play-Doh, is a man. So Socrates is one of those things, along with me and perhaps you and some other people, that are in the category of things that are men. As we've already established, the category of things that are men is in the category of things that are mortal. So we can see right there, look, that Socrates, the lump of yellow Play-Doh, is in the category of things that are mortal. Yeah? So the logic of the syllogism is derived from the logic of categories, which is in turn derived from the fully embodied logic of what it's like to be a middle-sized object moving at middle speed and dealing with things like containers. Now, people do sometimes make mistakes with these syllogisms. People sometimes say, all men are mortal, Socrates is mortal, therefore Socrates is a man. All men are mortal, Socrates is mortal, therefore Socrates is a man. Now we know that's wrong, although it can sometimes be hard to figure out exactly why it's wrong. And you can demonstrate why it's wrong because we're using these pots and objects. All men are mortal. Everything in the category of men is inside the category of things that are mortal. Socrates is mortal, so Socrates is somewhere in this pot. But it doesn't necessarily follow that he's inside the category of things that are men. He could be there, couldn't he, look? He's inside the category of things that are mortal, or it is in the category of things that are mortal, but it's not in the category of things that are men. In this example, Socrates might be a parrot, or it might be a woman called Socrates. Yeah. So the logic of the container forms the basis of the logic of naive set theory, at least, and the logic of categories. And logical proofs of that kind of syllogistic nature, at least, derive, I think, from these kind of experiences. You can actually use pots and objects to derive the three Aristotelian truths. You know what I mean? Self-identity. Well, I'll make another video about that. Anyway, thanks very much.